Hi folks. Today I just want to talk briefly about a well-known description of God in Isaiah 55, which often Christians misinterpret and put to entirely the wrong use. Here's how it gets misused. When unexpected difficulties and disappointments confront us, we sometimes try to comfort each other with these words. Well, God's thoughts are just not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. We intend, of course, to point to God's providential rule, the reality that he's working all things in life for our ultimate good, even those things that seem to be the very furthest from what might seem good for us right now. And God's providence is absolutely a precious and a comforting truth, and very appropriate to remind each other of when we're suffering. But it's not what God is talking about in Isaiah 55 when he says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." These words are not meant to draw our attention to God's sometimes surprising and unfathomable providence over us, but to his even more surprising heart of compassion for us. And I say surprising heart of compassion because the very point God is making here is that his heart is far more full of compassionate love and mercy for us than we naturally imagine or anticipate. In fact, the number one reason we find it so hard to believe just how great God's heart of compassion towards us is that we too often assume that God thinks and acts just like we do. And perhaps nowhere does this do us greater harm than when we project our own ways of thinking onto God with regards to our sin. With every new glimpse of our sin, we quickly assume that God must be deeply disappointed with us, that his heart can't possibly be so full of love for us as it was before, after he now sees the mess that we've made of things again. Why do we think this? Because we know that if we were God, we wouldn't be too thrilled to see us either. We would be deeply disappointed with us for what we've done. Frankly, if we were God, we'd give failures like us a very cold reception once we'd seen the sinful mess that they'd gotten themselves into again and again and again. We would be quick to tut and scold and to give people like us precisely what we deserve. But here in Isaiah 55 verse 8, God tells us that his thoughts are not like our thoughts at all. His ways could not be more different to our own. In particular, his heart is always full of compassion for wayward sinners. He is always poised and eager to abundantly pardon those who turn to him again for mercy. So, the fact that God's thoughts are not our thoughts and his ways not our ways is not a reason to keep our distance from him when we're confronted by our sin. On the contrary, it's the very reason we should run back to him again and again and take refuge in his perfect compassion, just as Isaiah tells us to do in the verses beforehand. Isaiah writes, "Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, that he may have compassion on him. And to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, declares the Lord." His thoughts are filled with far more compassion and mercy for us in our sin than we could possibly think or imagine. Listen to these words from Dane Ortland. He writes, "He isn't like you. God isn't like you. Even the most intense of human love is but the faintest echo of heaven's cascading abundance. His heartfelt thoughts for you outstrip what you can conceive." And then he goes on, "This is profound consolation for us as we find ourselves time and again wandering away from the Father, looking to calm our souls anywhere but in his embrace and instruction, returning to God in fresh contrition, however ashamed and disgusted we are with ourselves. He will not tepidly pardon. He will abundantly pardon. He does not merely accept us, he sweeps us up in his arms again. The fact that God doesn't think like we do is some of the very best news in all the world. So, let's seek the Lord again today and take refuge in his abundant pardon. And let's thank him and praise him again today for the fact that his thoughts are not like our thoughts, and his ways are not like our own. He is far more compassionate than we could ever conceive, and his love for us, his love for those who take refuge in Jesus, is beyond anything we could ever imagine.